Recording in progress.
Sessions called to order. Please rise for the singing of the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupit, di ka pasisingil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw, may nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kislap ng
Please remain standing for a minute of silent prayer and meditation. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we call the roll of members.
The Secretary General is directed to call the roll of members.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives. Abalos, Abante, Abunda, Acharon, Asidre, Acop, Adjong, Advincula, Agaraw, Alba, Albano, Almario, Almonte, Alonte, Alvarez Jose, Alvarez Mercedes, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante, Amatong, Angara, Aquino, Aquino Magsaysay, Arbison, Arenas, Arrogancia, Asistio, Atayde, Aumentado, Balindong, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Pascug, Bautista, Bautista Lim, Benitez, Bernos, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bongalon, Bordado, Rosita, Briones, Rosas, Buhain, Bulot Begtang, Bustos, Cabredo, Cagas, Kahayon Uy, Calderon, Calixto, Campos, Tawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castro Franz, Castro Jane, Celeste, Chan, Chato, Chua, Chungalao, Po Angelica Natasha, Po Elizaldi, Po Pilar, Po Juanco Jaime, Po Juanco Mark, Colada, Collantes, Orvera, Cruz Ambrosio, Cruz Ricardo, Pua, Quaresma, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Dayanghirang, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor, Del Mar, De Los Santos, Dimaporo Muhammad Khalid, Dimaporo Siti Amina, Dionisio, Domingo, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael Carlos, Di Ian Paul, Ecleo, Emano, Enciso, Enverga, Escudero, Espares, Espina, Estrella, Yudela, Fariñas, Fernandez, Ferrer Antonio, Ferrer Juliet Marie, Flores, Fortes, Frasco, Fresnedi, Fuentebella, Galeos, Garcia Albert, Garcia Dante, Garcia Jose Orturo, Garcia Maria Angela, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garjola, Garin, Gasataya, Gato, Go Ed Christopher, Go Mark, Goles, Gomez, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Wico, Ginto, Gullas, Gutierrez, Hagidorn, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, Horibata, Javier, Ho Olga Ara, Ho Ricardo, Ho Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon Daphne, Lagon Sani, Lara, Lasatin, Li, Ligarda, Libanan, Limkay Chong, Loyola, Luistro, Lumayag, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Magsino, Malapitan, Mangawang, Manikiz, Manuel, Maranyon, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Mastura, Matibag, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Mercado Revilla, Miguel, Momo, Morden, Nava, Misay, Noel, Nograles Juan Fidel Felipe, Nograles Margarita, Nolasco, Huaminal, Olaso, Olivares, Ongchuan, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Padiernos, Paduano, Paglas, Palma, Panaligan, Pancho, Panotes, Pascual, Peña, Pimentel, Plaza, Pleito, Primicias Agabas, Umaren, Puno, Kimbo, Rama, Recto, Regencia, Revilla Brian, Revilla Ramon Jolo, Reyes, Rillo, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez Eulogio, Rodriguez Rufus, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Sieda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Sali, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvame, Santos, Saulog, Silverio, Singson Richel, Singson Ronald, Singson Mihan, Solon, Soriano, Suwan, Swansing Horacio, Swansing Micaela Angela, Suarez, Talyado, Tamayo, Tambunting, Tan Joseph, Tan Keith Micah, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tan Chay, Tan Huatco, Tariela, Chodoro, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Cheng, Tolentino, Tulfo Jocelyn, Tulfo Ralph Wendell, Tupas, Tutor, T, Umali, Unabia, Ungab, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso Tuazon, Vergara, Verzosa, Villa, Villafuerte Luis Raymond, Villafuerte Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Christiantel, Yap Christopherson, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric, U Divina Grace, U Jaisel Victoria, Yulo, Zamora Amparo Maria, Zamora Maria Carmen, Zamora Isabel Maria, Subiri. Madam Speaker, the roll call shows that 311 members responded to the call.
With 311 members responding to the call, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, considering that copies of Journal Number 48, dated February 6, 2023, were already distributed to the members, I move that we dispense with the reading of the same and approve said journal.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Journal Number 48 is now approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the reference of business and request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles of bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as the communications and committee reports.
The Secretary General is directed to read the resolutions, committee reports on first reading.
Reference of business, bills on first reading, House Bill number 7078, reclassifying as agricultural land a parcel of land of the public domain located in Poblacion, Sinacaban, Misamis Occidental, and open to disposition for agricultural, commercial, residential, and industrial purposes by Representative Uwaminal.
To the Committee on Natural Resources.
House Bill number 7079, modernizing the Philippine Coast Guard by Representative Martinez.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Bill number 7080, establishing regional branches of specialty hospitals by Representative Almonte.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 7081, establishing evacuation centers in every city and municipality by Representative Almonte.
To the Committee on Disaster Resilience.
House Bill number 7082, providing for security of tenure for all casual and contractual employees of the government who have rendered the prescribed years of service in the national government and LGUs by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Bill number 7083, providing for the establishment of the Philippine DNA database system by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Public Order and Safety.
House Bill number 7084, providing for financial relief to victims of calamities by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Disaster Resilience.
House Bill number 7085, establishing the Basilan Agricultural and Fisheries College in Isabela, Basilan by Representative Hataman.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill number 7086, granting tax exemptions and subsidies for local film and music industries by Representatives De Venecia, Barba, Rodriguez Rufus, Gomar, Co, Angelica Natasha, Conghun, Veloso Tuazon, Benitez Villarica, Arenas Bulilia, Salceda, Atay de Revilla, Brian Robes, Delmar Aumentado, Velasco, Gomez Recto, Kimbo, Asidre, Frasco, Bautista Lim, Singson Mihan, Tolentino Horibata, Singson Richel, Maceda, Legarda, Cojuangco Jaime, Alonte, Vargas, Nograles, Margarita, Rama, Barbers, Mercado Revilla, Revilla, Ramon Jolo, Magsino, Fernandez, and Garcia Jose Arturo.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill 7092, instituting a national land use policy by Representative Gomez.
To the Special Committee on Land Use.
Resolutions. House Resolution 742, urging the government of the United States of America to issue an apology for the atrocities committed by its military forces against the Filipino people during the Philippine-American War and the imposition of U.S. colonial rule by Representatives Castro Franz, Brosas, and Manuel.
To the Committee on Foreign Affairs.
House Resolution 743, urging the appropriate committees of the House to conduct a review and assessment of existing bilateral labor agreements with countries of destination with the end in view of ensuring the protection of rights and welfare of overseas Filipino workers by Representative Magsino.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 744, expressing the sense of the House to terminate the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the United States to uphold an independent foreign policy by Representatives Brosas, Castro Franz, and Manuel.
To the Committee on Foreign Affairs.
House Resolution 745, organizing the Philippine United Kingdom Parliamentarians Friendship Group by Representative Labad-Labad.
To the Committee on Interparliamentary Relations and Diplomacy.
House Resolution 746, urging the Professional Regulation Commission to establish a service center in Sindangan, Zamboanga del Norte by Representative Labad-Labad.
To the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Resolution 747, congratulating the Ateneo Debate Society for its victory in the recent World Universities Debating Championship held on December 27 to January 3, 2023 by Representative Manuel.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Resolution 748, urging the Committee on Indigenous Cultural Communities and Indigenous Peoples to conduct an investigation on the issued certification precondition to Pan-Pacific Renewable Power Philippines Corporation and ensure the rights and welfare of Isnag Indigenous people of Cabugao, Apayao against harassment and intimidation by Representatives Manuel Brosas and Castro Franz.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 749, calling on the House to investigate the hasty process that led to the approval of the Pasig River Expressway by Representatives Manuel Brosas and Castro Franz.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 750, urging the House to conduct an investigation into the programs for former rebels by the NTF-ELCAC due to grossly deficient documentation of funds as per COA reports by Representatives Manuel Brosas and Castro Franz.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 751, urging the House through the Committee on Transportation to conduct an investigation on the excessive cost to acquire a driver's license by Representative Bondo.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, before we continue, I would just like to acknowledge the guests of Congresswoman Aniela Bianca D. Tolentino from the local government and the municipality of General Emilio Aguinaldo, Mayor Dennis Glian, Councilor Manuel Bencito, Councilor Darwin Quiacos, Councilor Neptali Sermat, Councilor Ricardo Binauhan, ABC President Yodi Lopez. Madam Speaker.
To the guests of the Honorable Ariela Bianca D. Tolentino from the 8th District of Cavite, to the local government officials of the Municipality of General Emilio Aguinaldo Cavite, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, under the calendar of unfinished business, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill 6715 as contained in Committee Report Number 261. And for this purpose, may I ask that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill.
House Bill number 6715, an act providing for the development of sustainable cities and communities in the country.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the chairperson of the Committee on Housing and Urban Development, Representative Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
There is a motion to open the period of sponsorship debate. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the chairperson of the Committee on Housing and Urban Development, Representative Francisco Benitez of the 3rd District of Negros Occidental be recognized.
The Honorable Francisco Kiko Benitez from the 3rd District of Negros Occidental is recognized.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues, it is an honor to present to this august body House Bill number 6715, a consolidation of House Bill number 71, 842, and 2029, or an act providing for the development of sustainable cities and communities in the country. Cities can represent the apex of our accomplishments, where economic activity is concentrated, where different cultures intersect, where dreams are born. Cities hold the promise of progress as engines of economic growth and fertile grounds for innovation and social transformation. Urban areas in the Philippines, in fact, account for 75 to 80% of the country's GDP. But cities can also represent the low point of the human condition: poverty, pollution, crime, traffic congestion, disease. And we see this manifest in Philippine cities today. Wide inequalities that limit the social mobility of our urban population, development pressures that threaten ecological balance. Poverty incidence in urban areas is at 9.3% in 2018. Poor urban conditions also exacerbated health risks, as cities are terminals of global travel and trade. The earliest waves of the pandemic were recorded in urban areas. Studies have shown positive correlations between population density and COVID transmission. Vulnerability of the poor in urban areas is also aggravated by spatial exclusion and the obstacles to access to the rights of the city. Due to increasing costs of land, formal housing has become increasingly unaffordable. Informal settlements for low-income families find refuge that lack proper sanitation, lack proper sewage. Based on the 2020 Annual Poverty Indicator Survey, around 800,000 families are informal settler families. House Bill number 6715 seeks to address these inequalities and urban dysfunctions and to promote inclusive, resilient, and sustainable urban development. It builds on the principles, concepts, and commitments of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the new urban agenda of the United Nations, and reiterates objectives for economic prosperity, social inclusion, public health, cultural diversity, ecological balance, and climate resilience. House Bill number 6715 also seeks to ensure the use of urban space for housing and livelihood, improve access to basic services, develop integrated public transportation systems and green infrastructure, protect ecosystems, and manage risks of climate change and disasters in accordance with our House resolution on the climate emergency. In the pursuit of these objectives, House Bill number 6715 mandates all cities and municipalities with majority of their barangays classified as urban to conform with and implement plans, programs, and activities guided by Ambition 2040, the Philippine Standards for Sustainable Cities and Communities, and governed by the principles of inclusive urban circular economy, spatial justice, urban renewal, urban mobility, digital connectivity, urban space safety, ecological balance, disaster resilience, climate change adaptation, cultural diversity, participatory urban governance, and the alignment of economic, social, and environmental policies from the local government units from the smallest to the largest. Madam Speaker, my dear colleagues, these objectives are ambitious, but directing the development and the planning of our cities and communities towards these goals is an urgent imperative. Our cities are congested, and space for meaningful human interaction is shrinking. Cities and communities can no longer breathe. We cannot afford to wait. The time to act is now. The solutions contained in this bill also form a roadmap to green economic recovery. Robust, post-pandemic economic growth must be grounded on building healthy and resilient communities. And we can do this by investing in blue-green systems and spaces, more parks, greenways, urban farms, mangrove forests. The new normal city should improve the quality of urban life by providing us a breathing space. Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the members of the Committee on Housing and Urban Development and the over 30 other co-authors of this bill, it is an honor to bring this measure to the plenary for your support and approval. Madamo gid nga salamat sa inyo tanan, maayong hapon sa inyo.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the gentleman from Kabataan Party List, the Honorable Raul Daniel Manuel, for his interpellation.
The Honorable Raul Daniel Manuel is recognized for his interpellation.
Salamat, Madam Speaker. Would the sponsor of this House bill be willing to yield to a few questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Unang tanong, Madam Speaker, nasa Section 5 po, naka-outline ang targets and indicators para masabi natin na nagiging mas sustainable ang isang syudad. Naka-enumerate po ang agencies like Department of Housing, NEDA, DILG, tsaka Philippine Statistics Authority. Kaso po, merong mga indicators or targets na sa tingin po natin ay labas sa saklaw ng ganitong mga ahensya. For instance, public transport access, promoting cultural heritage, urban air quality, access to ICT services at iba pa. So, paano po natin matitiyak na lahat po ng gusto nating i-cover na targets ay merong ahensya talaga na siyang magiging priority agency para wala tayong untouched na mga targets?
Madam Speaker, the good gentleman from Kabataan is correct. Some of these measures are not, in fact, under the direct purview of the agencies that have been listed. However, these are indicators, what it suggests is that the PSA, for example, and NEDA is meant to gather the statistics and the data. No, the thrust is for a urban development plan. The implementation of which will depend, in fact, on the local government unit themselves, right? So the intent is to create a framework for planning that is in accordance with the policies of the new urban agenda and the sustainable development goals. As a measure directing more robust and sustainable urban planning, it is the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development that is tasked with the monitoring aspect. The implementation of specific targets and indicators, of course, will depend nonetheless on the individual departments, but even more importantly, on the planning horizons of the LGUs themselves. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, nabanggit yung magiging papel ng ating mga local government units. It leads me to my next question na as to Section 8 of the House Bill that we are discussing, nabanggit ang tungkol sa incentives, capacity building, pero hindi pa ganun kalinaw paano yung magiging mga mekanismo para naman sa consultation with the various sectors in communities at paano din natin mamamandate yung ating LGUs na mag-conduct ng ganong mga konsultasyon. Mas nais po natin na mag-guarantee, for example, ating mga relevant na civil society organizations na merong requisite na expertise ay makonsulta dun sa planning. How can we possibly guarantee such?
Madam Speaker, the process of public participation is not, in fact, stipulated. It is nonetheless stipulated within the measure that such consultations and open access to information should be made available. Now, the LGUs themselves have a process by which every development can undergo public hearings as well. So I think the premise of the measure is to provide information and education so that, in fact, local government units that have the processes for public participation are emboldened and mandated to ensure that their people are able to take part in the consultations that they do as part of their own processes of development. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, my next question would be about public transport access. Bilang mahalagang component ng pagiging sustainable ng mga syudad at urban areas sa ating bansa. I'd like to ask, Madam Speaker, paano halimbawa kung ang isang LGU ay, let's say, nagsastrive na abutin yung targets at ma-meet yung mga pamantayan for it to be classified or can be recognized as sustainable. Paano mo kapag merong mga national policies that can run counter to such goal of the LGU? For example, yung unti-unting pag-phase out ng ating mga jeepney dahil sa, for example, merong memorandum ang ating LTO na i-pave yung way for modern jeepneys, tapos nakaka-apekto yun doon sa, hindi lang sa yung mga public utility vehicles na pumapasada, pero naapektuhan pati yung ruta ng mga jeepneys, na of course would affect how the public, the commuters, would travel in their city. So, what can be the way to resolve such conflict kung merong pagkakaiba doon sa yung policies ng national government at yung genuine intentions naman ng mga LGU, Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker, that is why the bill requests and requires that the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development create a national economic National Housing and Urban Development Sector Plan in consultation with national agencies to ensure a harmonization of such policies. So what is envisioned is a plan that has both general and national in scope, but tangible in the local level, so that the specificities of local contexts can also be taken into account, Madam Speaker.
Now, Madam Speaker, as to our urban poor communities, as we build sustainable cities, how will their welfare be taken care of, especially when it comes to establishment of sustainable housing areas?
Madam Speaker, one of the key targets and indicators actually is urban populations living in slums. And so one of the desires is a plan, an adequate plan for addressing inadequate housing and informal settlements, including urban renewal, as one of the targets of the plan. So again, the measure is a planning framework for sustainable cities, which does include having a plan to address the issue of the urban poor. And again, I would like to reiterate that the measure creates a national housing urban development sectoral plan, but one that needs to be fine-tuned to local conditions of LGUs. So what it does mean is that the local LGUs need to come up with a local shelter plan, which is already mandated by law, but to amend that local shelter plan to make sure that it takes into account these other variables, right, that are in consonance with the new urban agenda and the sustainable development goals. Madam Speaker.
Next question, Madam Speaker. Nung binasa po natin ang Section 4, Guiding Framework for Sustainable Cities and Communities, marami siyang mga magagandang nabanggit actually. Now, my question, Madam Speaker, would be about how can we ensure compliance sa ating mga LGUs. Halimbawa po, nabanggit dito spatial justice, which promotes multiple use of land to prevent forced evictions, displacement, marginalization, and gentrification. Paano po natin mabibigyang pangil o matitiyak na nandyan talaga yung ating pag-hold accountable doon sa ating mga LGUs na hindi susunod sa mga prinsipyo nitong panukalang batas, Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker, as a framework of planning, what the measure suggests is an incentive process by which cities that mark high in terms of the index set forth by the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development gain as part of their assessment for the seal of good local governance. Wala ho dito, tama po ang ating kasama sa Kabataan Party List, wala po ditong ngipin ba ang tawag niya, na sila ay kailangan pong sumunod. Pero nandito naman po ang desire na sila ay ma-incentivize para po sila ay sumunod. Ang ganong pong klaseng measure na hinahanap po ng ating kasama galing sa Kabataan Party List ay palagay ko po ay karapat-dapat sa ibang klaseng panukalang batas, hindi po dito sa loob nito, as a planning framework, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, on my final topic, para din maging mas concrete yung ating talakayan, I'd like to put on the table yung National Capital Region as an example. How can we materialize our vision to have sustainable cities? Kasi, Madam Speaker, ang isa sa mga lagi ko ding naririnig, lalo from people who have tried living in other regions of the country at maninirahan din sa National Capital Region, para bang nakaka-suffocate yung living experience. Nandyan yung fact na kalakhan na ating mga open spaces o yung pwedeng puntahan ng mga tao. Actually, hindi na parks, kalakhan na ay mga mall. Tapos, in terms of the other spaces, halimbawa, when we travel through yung mga skyways, ganyan, hindi natin masyadong mararamdaman kung ano yung kahit yung visual experience ng mga kababayan natin na nasa ilalim ng mga skyways, na instead na makita nila yung kung ano pa yung natitirang nature sa kanilang paligid, no? Puro mga ganong gahiganteng mga istruktura na hindi naman sila yung nakakagamit. So, how can this bill assist, no, in decongesting our very congested urban spaces, Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker, salamat po sa sinabi ng ating Kabataan Party List Congressman. Tama po siya, yun po ang aking theme actually of my sponsorship speech. No? The framework that's being proposed within this bill should help in the urban planning subsequent. However, I think it would be foolish of me to say on record before this august body that this framework will solve the urban dysfunctions of the National Capital Region. What it does is it institutionalizes and embeds within the urban planning space, no, of the LGUs within the National Capital Region these sets of principles in the hopes that they can in fact rectify whatever can be rectified, and that they plan as the city continues to grow better, right? So there has been a lot of wasted opportunities, and one of the fears is that the absence of a law like this will replicate the kind of dysfunctions that we are already experiencing in the NCR in other urban spaces across the country that are right now beginning to expand, urbanize, and develop even as we speak. It is in that sense, Madam Speaker, that once again I repeat, there is a sense of urgency that a framework like this be passed.
Yeah.
Madam Speaker.
At this point, Madam Speaker, I have no further questions. I thank the sponsor for responding to our queries. Maraming salamat.
Salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Christian Tel Yap to deliver his sponsorship speech.
The Honorable Christian Tel Yap is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, distinguished colleagues, this humble representation seeks to sponsor House Bill number 6715 contained in the committee report number 261, entitled An Act Providing for the Development of Sustainable Cities and Communities in the Country. The Philippines is one of the most dynamic economies in Asia, with a huge young and capable working population. Global companies and foreign capital investments flock the Philippines in search of quality, agile, and productive workforce. With the growth of the national economy, urbanization of all spaces accordingly increases, creating both benefits that improve the welfare of the people, as well as the risks that exposes us to life-threatening effects of climate change. According to the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, more than half the world's population live in urban areas. It is estimated that by 2050, that figure will rise to 6.5 billion people, or 2/3 of all humanity. In the National Capital Region, the overall population as of 2020, national census is 13.4 million people, projected to continuously increase with over 500,000 people living in informal settlements. There is no doubt that cities and urban centers provide people with economic activities and opportunities that in turn bring forth a dynamic and active lifestyle, improving the well-being and quality of life of its inhabitants. Likewise, the growth of the cities and urban areas translate into economic growth for the country, with the NCR having the largest share to the national gross domestic product, GDP, at 37%, followed by Calabarzon at 16% and Central Luzon at 6%, totaling to to 62% of GDP for the country, according to the National Economic and Development Authority. The rapid growth of cities coupled with increasing rural to urban migration allows to boom in megacities and urban regional centers. Extreme poverty and inequality, however, has risen in these highly populated, concentrated urban spaces. Further, with a great emphasis, is our need to address and prepare and mitigate the cascading impacts of climate change-induced disasters to our communities. It is therefore essential and urgent to make cities safe and sustainable by ensuring access to safe and affordable housing, upgrading highly dense slum settlements, investing in public transport, creating green public spaces, and improving urban planning and design through inclusive and participatory management. Furthermore, such policies must be integrated in a whole-of-government approach, including all stakeholders, the private sector, and the faithful participation of all national and local government units. Mr. Speaker, this representation humbly submits House Bill 6715, or the Sustainable Cities Communities Act, which seeks to institutionalize a national policy framework for establishing sustainable cities and communities. This measure will sustainability standards for all urban and government units and ensure that the development of urban spaces is geared towards sustainable development. All cities, municipalities, and barangays classified as urban will be mandated to conform and align their plans, programs, and activities with guiding principles and indicators provided in the bill, anchored on the Philippine Development Plan and the long-term vision for the Philippines, aptly called Ambition Natin 2040. In addition, the National Housing and Urban Development Sector Plan, formulated under the measure, will provide the short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategic plans to achieve the goal of developing sustainable cities and communities. The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development will provide technical assistance to communities, LGUs, in their integration to the National Urban Development and Housing Framework, as well as the NHU-DSP. Lastly, the measure incentivizes both public and private sector in adopting sustainable standards in their communities. For LGUs, annual targets for sustainable development are incorporated in the criteria for awarding the seal of good local governance, while meanwhile participation of private sector towards achieving sustainable development goals of the measure is likewise incentivized in accordance with the Philippine Green Jobs Act of 2016. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 6715 is a clear and necessary step to foster the sustainable development of our cities and urban areas. This measure equips our cities and communities to adaptive, evolving nature of the environment, the economy, and most importantly, our people's needs, guided by principles of inclusivity, mobility, connectivity, participatory government, safety and cultural diversity, disaster resilience, and climate change adaptation. The Sustainable Cities and Communities Act institutionalizes our vision towards resilient, progressive, and prosperous communities for the Filipino people. In this light of foregoing, I seek your humble support for this passage of this legislation. Thank you very much.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to interpolate the sponsor, I move that we terminate the period of sponsorship and debate.
There's a motion to terminate the period of sponsorship. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
There's a motion to open the period of amendments. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no committee amendment nor individual amendment, I move that we close the period of amendments.
There's a motion to close the period of amendment. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 6715.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 6715 on second reading. Those who are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 6715 is approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, before we proceed, we would like to acknowledge the guests of Honorable Attorney Jervil Jinky Beatrix R. Luistro of the 2nd District of Batangas. Her guests are from the Municipality of Lobo, Batangas, namely Honorable Municipal Councilor Jeronimo Alfiler, Honorable Municipal Councilor Angelito Abiera, BHW Coordinator Maricel Ramos Moises, BHW President Maria Asuncion Castillo Makatangay, and Barangay Health Worker Leaders. They are Arlet Feliciano Cabral, Wenny Dimaano Marasigan, Loretta Ralionza Ramirez, Emiliana Capio Santo Tomas, Crispina Perez, Lita Caringal, Marita Driz, Lenny Pentino, Susan Goco, Teresa Aungon, Merlita de Chavez, Erlin Gutierrez, Sara Rapinan, Annabel Umali, June Ada, Maria Fe Bungaling, Gina de los Alas, Shirley Umali, Corazon Asi, Mayola Bukas, Valerie Tapak, Annalisa Gutierrez, Shaira Mamalinta Makatangay, Maricel Abanilla Sarmiento, Lolita Abanilla Magtibay, and Executive Assistant Lester Ayag, Executive Assistant to the Vice Mayor, Robin Ayag, Along with them are Judge Amiel Pargas and Attorneys Sonia Ricablanca Pargas and Attorney Sunny Ricablanca. I so move, Madam Speaker.
To the guests of the Attorney Jervil Jinky Beatrix R. Luistro from the 2nd District of Batangas, from the Municipality of Lobo, Batangas, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, we would also like to acknowledge the guests of Honorable Steve Chiongbian Solon of the Lone District of Sarangani. They are Mayor Maria Teresa D. Constantino, Vice Mayor Mariano Escalada, Municipal Councilors Erwin A. Asgapo, Danilo F. Constantino, Victor M. Padernilla, Cesar B. Nalios Jr., Edilberto S. Yuzon, Rodrigo V. Palek Jr., Ernesto B. Alegario Jr., Edmond D. Pangilan, and Carmela M. Constantino. With them also are the barangay captains, Emilio M. Montong, Marites A. Argonitas, Elmer C. Magno, Rolando T. Cabales, Severino A. Borja, Sweetly May B. Galang, Ronel N. Zorilla, Jose King Tampal, Miraflor Cesar, Rosana Dumalan, Estrella Obiena, Miller S. Galang Sr., Eusebio Moral, Edgar B. Alegario, Selmax Mendoza, Yolanda R. Santos, Dan Raymond Constantino, Kian Cesar Nalios, Helen A. Aradanas, Morelio Puton, Edna Tuanzon, Terso B. Moda, Edwin Abalye, Ana Marie Mananbay, Reynald P. De La Cuesta, Marilyn Castillo, Emiliano S. Fabroa Jr., Virgilio A. Asgapo Jr., Diosdado Esmejas, Jumbre O. Miguel, and along with them are Roselyn D. Constantino, Benjamin Santos, Monard Galdo, Pamela Leonidas, Engineer Mark Anthony Zagales, and Almin Abejaron, and John Ray Gabatan. Yes, that's all.
To the guests of the Honorable Steve Chiongbian Solon from the Lone District of Sarangani, the municipal officials, the barangay captains, other officers and staff, headed by Mayor Maria Teresa Di Constantino, who is also the EVP for Operations of the National Mayors League. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, under the calendar of business for the day, I move that we consider House Bill number 6994 as contained in Committee Report number 293. And may we request that the Secretary General be instructed to read the title of the bill.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill.
House Bill 6994, an act mandating the Philippine Merchant Marine Academy to admit one cadet from each congressional district every school year to comprise its freshman class.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
There's a motion to open the period of sponsorship and debate. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the chairperson of the Committee on Higher and Technical Education, Representative Mark Go, be recognized to begin sponsorship of the said measure.
The Honorable Mark Go is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, my esteemed colleagues in this august chamber. A pleasant afternoon to all of you. I'm sponsoring today House Bill 6994 under Committee Report 293, which mandates the Philippine Merchant Marine Academy to admit one cadet per congressional district every school year to comprise its freshman class. This measure, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, aims to widen access to higher education and give equal opportunities to deserving students all over the country, especially those from remote provinces and far-flung areas of the country, to study at the Philippine Merchant Marine Academy, which is a premier state maritime higher education institution in the country. While the PMMA opens its doors to aspiring applicants all over the country, Madam Speaker, the reality is that out of an average of 6,400 examinees per school year, only about 5% hurdle the different stages of the screening process to enter the academy. Based on PMMA data for the last 3 school years, Madam Speaker, majority of the 5% of students who qualify for admission are residents of the National Capital Region, with 26, 36, and 41 students accepted respectively for academic years 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022, and 2022 to 2023. Also included in the majority, Madam Speaker, are nearby provinces in Southern Luzon like Batangas, which started from just 4 students in school year 2020 to 2021, and then increased to 5 the following school year, then rose to 16 in school year 2020-2022. The province of Quezon saw a steady increase from 6 to 7 and then to 11 for these 3 consecutive academic years. Madam Speaker, other Luzon provinces, such as those in the Bicol region, Region 1, Region 2, and Region 3, and the Cordillera Administrative Region have a good number of PMMA students for school year 2022 to 2023. In the CAR, particularly the province of Benguet, where my congressional district of Baguio is geographically located, there were 15 qualified for academic year 2022 to 2023. A total of 23 students from Kalinga, 22 from Ifugao, and 8 from Mountain Province are also qualified to study at the PMMA this school year. Meanwhile, Madam Speaker, the provinces of Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, and Cagayan in Region 2 have 8, 7, and 14 students respectively, who are now studying in the Philippine Merchant Marine Academy this school year. However, Madam Speaker, there are provinces which for the last 3 years had 0 or just 1 PMMA qualifier. These include Mindanao provinces like Misamis Occidental, Misamis Oriental, Surigao del Sur, Bukidnon, Cotabato, and Sarangani, to name a few, as well as the provinces of Aklan, Capiz, Guimaras, and Negros Oriental in the Visayas. One of the reasons for this, Madam Speaker, is the lack of applicants from these provinces. Hence, this bill mandates the PMMA to ensure an equitable distribution and a more balanced composition of each PMMA class, with the end in mind of producing graduates who will represent not only every province but every congressional district of the country. This, Madam Speaker, directs the PMMA to reach out to as many prospective applicants all over the country to ensure that at least 1 qualified applicant from each legislative district and 3 applicants from provinces with only 1 congressional district will be given 1 chance or the chance to experience PMMA education and have PMMA graduates. Let me clarify, Madam Speaker, that this measure is not for automatic admission of applicants, but they will still have to pass the admission requirements of the PMMA before they can become part of the freshman class. This bill further provides that only upon determination by the PMMA that there is no qualified applicant from a certain congressional district shall a qualified applicant, irrespective of domicile, be considered for the said slot. Madam Speaker and my colleagues, I urge you to support this particular measure. Let us ensure that aspiring students will have access to quality higher education in the premier merchant marine institution of the country. Again, thank you very much at
Approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
There's a motion to open the period of amendments. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no committee amendment, I move that we now proceed to consider individual amendments.
There's a motion to proceed to the individual amendment. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Angelo Marcos Barba of the 2nd District of Ilocos Norte for his individual amendment.
The Honorable Angelo Barba is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For individual amendments on the House Bill at hand, number 6994, some minor amendments. Under Section 1, at the end of line 1, the determiner "a" shall be deleted and the preposition "at" shall be intercalated. Again, under Section 1, on line 2, before the word student, the words least one shall be intercalated. Thus, the phrase shall read as least one student. Still, under Section 1, on line 6, between the words district and 3, the words at least shall be intercalated. Thus, the phrase shall read district at least 3 cadets. And finally, on the title thereof, on the second line, between the words admit and one, we intercalate again the words at least. Thus, the phrase shall read, admit at least 1 cadet. That would be all, Madam Speaker.
What does the sponsor say in the said amendments?
I agree, Madam Speaker.
What does the House say?
Madam Speaker, we join the sponsor in accepting the amendments.
There's a motion for the said amendments. Those who are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to introduce individual amendments, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
There's a motion to close the period of individual amendments. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 6994 as amended.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 6994 on second reading. Those are in favor say aye. Aye. Those are against say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 6994 is approved on second reading. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we include additional co-authors to House Bill number 6994 and House Bill number 7006 and House Resolution numbers 328, 329, and 330 as contained in the list to be submitted by the Committee on Rules.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, we move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, considering that copies of Journal 49 dated February 7, 2023 were already distributed to the members, I move that we dispense with the reading of the same and approve said journal.
Is there any objection? The chair hears now Journal number 49 dated February 7, 2023 is hereby approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that to adjourn session until 3 p.m. February 13, Monday.
Sessions adjourned until February 13, Monday at 3 p.m.
Sponsor sa hotel mo.
I'm magpipicture.